Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be looking at another issue of Conquest, and today we'll be looking at issue 3, and it is all about the ultramarines Reivers. So without further ado, let's jump straight in. So before we move on to the actual magazine itself, let's talk about what you get in this issue. So this issue, you get 3 Reivers, one pot of lead belcher, and then 3 bases to stand your Reivers on. So straight off the bat, another good value for money magazine. Obviously they've now reached their regular resale price, so all the magazines from here on out, as far as I know, will be $7.99. You've got a pot of paint, that's regular resale price would be $2.55, and you've got 3 Space Marine Reivers. So it's not bad value for money. Obviously it is going up there, but we kind of expected this as the magazines went along. They'd sort of draw back on the amount they were giving us, and I suppose it's not a bad thing in a way, because it just gives us more to look forward to each week, because then in other magazines we'll get more different paints and different models, and I think bits of terrain and will be added in eventually and things like that. So it's still good value for money, so I'm not upset with that. No issues with what you get with the magazines this week. It's all pretty good stuff. So now let's jump into the magazine itself. So I know I didn't talk about this for issue 2, but on our very first page here, it's just a very quick what we can expect from this issue, and then an index as into what's going to be on each page. It's actually quite exciting because the tutorial pages on actually playing the game are getting longer. We're getting more pages in it, so hopefully that there's going to be some exciting new stuff in this issue for us to look at. So let's just take a look at this next page here. What you'll find in most armies is you get different units, and these units can range massively in sort of what they're good at, what their key skills are, whether that's just ordinary troops or whether they're elite, a HQ, or whether they're transport such as tanks or flying vehicles, bikes. There's a massive variety within the armies of what a unit can consist of. So obviously in this issue we're looking at the Reivers. So if we just have a little look at this box here, it's just sort of telling us the key facts about this unit. So it's telling us that they are infantry, their role is close support, their specialisms are infiltration and terror troops, their designation is Primaris Reivers, and their preferred target, so enemy infantry, command assets, strategic objectives. So for those of you who aren't aware, Reivers aren't the same as your standard Space Marines. They actually play a really important role in most armies. And what Reivers are actually used for is they are sent in first. So they're sent in first into battles, and they're used to set up ambushes and traps. So one of the main differences between the Reivers and Space Marines is they're trained to be incredibly stealthy, and they are experts at sneaking into enemy lines without being detected. So they'll basically sneak into enemy lines and they'll just launch these sudden attacks that just strikes terror and confusion into their enemies. So you could almost say that Reivers tend to use the element of surprise as one of their main tactics. So one of the main differences between Space Marines and Primaris Reivers is their Vox amplified space masks. And that's these skull-shaped masks just here, which, to be honest, they are pretty cool and they are pretty terrifying. And what they'll do when launching an attack behind the enemy lines is they'll just burst out suddenly, roaring through these space masks, and it just leaves the enemy so confused and so terrified as to what's going on. But these space masks also play other key roles. These masks also allow them to communicate over vast distances. They can use them to breathe underwater and through dense smoke and all kinds of pollution. So they're actually really handy in battle, and they come really, really useful, and they're one of the key assets for the Reivers, and probably the most noticeable as well. And everything I've just explained to you is detailed in this page here. So this page makes for a really good read, and it gives you a really good knowledge base of the Reivers and lets you know all these key bits of information about them. And I find that's a really important thing when making your army, is to really understand the units you're using. We've already spoken about the role of the Primaris Reivers, and that is close support. So if I just read this little bit here for you. Just as battle line squads are the backbone of an army, close support squads specialise in pushing forward and meeting the enemy head on, typically armed with short range but powerful war gear, able to move fast and exploit any enemy weakness. Close support squads are the cutting edge of any army. So it's kind of just letting you know that they're actually a really, really important unit within an army, and they can just do tons of damage before the main units have even got in, before they've even arrived to the planet or the system where they're launching their attacks. Moving on to the next page, this is another cool page, and it just sort of shows you the different war gear that the Reivers actually have compared to the Space Marines. So typically the Reivers, they have their Vox Amp face masks, their grab, shoot, lift vein, combat knives, not swords, but just these really massive knives, almost the size of a small sword, but just these really big knives so they can really get into close combat and really do some damage. They'll also typically have heavy bolt pistols, and they always take grenades with them, so they'll always have their frag, crack and shock grenades. So on this next page here, really cool, we just have some data files explaining what each of these different bits of war gear are, and it's just some really good information. I quite liked it. I especially liked finding out about the Vox Amp face masks and what they were all about, because they're really cool to look at, but you don't typically expect Space Marines just to sort of go into battle with skull face masks just to look good. You know, there's always got to be some advantage behind it. We won't go into these two next pages much, but I really, really do recommend giving them a read. It's just a really cool, almost short story, if you will, about a battle that once happened between the Raven Guard and Necrons. So with our models this week, I will be doing a painting tutorial on them, the same as we did for our Primaris Space Marines Intercessors. The only difference this week will be is we won't be looking at painting the whole miniature, as I've already gone through how to paint an ultramarine in the first painting tutorial. But what we will look at in this painting tutorial is how we're going to paint the different parts that make up the Reivers. So how we're going to paint the knives, the bolt gun, their face masks, especially the face masks, because they are so different to your typical Space Marine, and the other little details such as the grenades and any other key little bits that are different to your normal Space Marines. Moving on to the tutorial pages on how to actually play the game. Last issue you learned the basics of the game of Warhammer 40,000. You can now move, shoot, wound and make saving throws. But what about the cut and thrust of hand-to-hand combat? Read on to learn how to charge and fight with your models. So I'm pretty excited about that, because when playing 40k, my favourite phase is the combat phase. I'm not a massive fan of the shooting phase, and I do tend to go for armies that are more getting into the combat. I don't know what it is about the combat phase, I just really, really enjoy it. So the next page in the tutorial is the rules update. So it's giving us an update that we are using a different unit. So it's letting us know the rules for the Reivers. And then in this little portion of the magazine here, it's just showing us that we are adding in our 4th phase. So we're going to move, shoot, charge, and then fight in this phase. So this is just another basic page explaining the charging phase, and it's just to be fair, the charging phase is a really simple phase anyway, so it's not anything too complicated to grasp. So it's just sort of explaining to you that you just need to roll 2d6, measure the distance between you and the enemy unit you want to charge into, and that your dice you roll has to succeed the amount you've actually rolled. So say for example you've rolled a 3 and a 2 and you are 4 inches from the enemy unit you want to charge into, you can then charge because you've rolled 5 on the dice. We've then got this page here that's telling us all about overwatching, and that overwatching is basically just the enemy unit that you are charging into. It's just that last chance to kind of stop your efforts and kind of stop you, or at least wound you before you actually get into close combat with them. So it's kind of that last chance to do as much damage or even kill that unit. And then it goes on to explain the fighting phase. So it's just explaining the order in which the fight phase goes, and then that obviously you can roll to hit, you roll to wound, and you then roll to save. So again, just another nice basic page. I really like how they're keeping it so nice and simple, and it's so nice to just give people an easy way to learn the game, because I find with 40k you sort of get your rule book and you get your army and you get codexes, and it's just this bombardment of information, and some of it can be quite hard to understand, especially things like the stratagems. So it is really nice to have a really nice basic way to teach people how to play the game before they start adding in all the extra rules and all the stratagems. And then our very last page here again is just adding in those extra rules that I previously mentioned, and this is really good because it gives people and children a chance to get comfortable with the game before they start adding in all the extra rules. So yeah, but I really enjoy it. I think it's a really good way to do it. So that is it for today's video and Conquest issue 3. Before I end the video, as always, I just sort of like to give my opinions on what I think to the magazine. And to be honest, they haven't really changed. I'm still really enjoying the magazine. I really enjoy reading through it, especially the first few pages. I always find them to be incredibly interesting and to really grip you in. It's, you know, it's always good to have a good knowledge base of the armies that you're going to play, or even the armies that you're going to face. It's always good to understand what's going on with them, because it's very easy to forget that once you've learnt the rules for your army, another army's own rules may affect the way that you can actually play against them. So it's always good to have a vast understanding of, I suppose, the whole 40k universe. But as I said, I'm still really enjoying the magazine. I'm really enjoying the tutorials on how to play the actual game. I think they're really good, and I especially think they're good for children. Perhaps not really young children, but children sort of between the ages of, you know, 8 to 12 and even older. It's just a really good and easy way for them to grasp how to actually play. And to be honest, I would really recommend anyone who's sort of watched these reviews and hasn't already went out and subscribed to the magazine, I would actually recommend subscribing to the magazine, because it is such a good magazine and you just get so much with it, and it's such a nice way to build an army piece by piece, rather than sort of going out and being like, I need this and I need this and I need this, and then you've got all these models and all these models to paint, and that can be such a daunting task at times. But yeah, so it's a nice magazine. It does everything in bite-sized pieces, from the growing of your army to the painting of your army to the playing of your army. It's all done in bite-sized pieces, and it's all really easy to sort of get your head around. So yeah, I really do like the magazine so far. So that's it for today's review, guys. As always, if you enjoyed it, please, please, please give the video a massive thumbs up. If you enjoyed these videos, please subscribe to my channel. We want to grow, we want to build the 40k universe, and we want to get loads more people involved, especially girls such as myself. It's not just for boys, women can enjoy it too. And as always, guys, thank you so much for all the support and fantastic comments in the previous videos. I do read all of them, and I try to give all of them a thumbs up if I can. With all that being said, I'll see you in the next video, guys. Bye!